and happy Tuesday. I know you guys are all at home, nice and cozy, ready to get started for art. Well, in this art class, we're going to be working on a cool project. We're going to need this paper, so the one that's the bigger square for Tuesday, we're going to use this paper. So we're going to have it nice in the center of our table, right, ready to start. We're also going to need a pencil, a black Sharpie. If you don't have a Sharpie at home, you can use a black marker or a black pen. Either one works, but a Sharpie would work a lot better, or a marker would work a lot better. You can also choose to use colored pencils for this project, or crayons. I don't want to see any markers, but if markers are the only things that you have, then you can use markers. But let's try to stick with colored pencils and crayons because we don't want it to bleed through too much. So what's our project going to look like? Well, our project's going to look like a bunch of overlapping circles, and we're going to color each different section a different color. So if you can see on the one that I made, I have some brown, some purple, and some yellow. And so these circles are what we call geometric shapes in art. And so when we're creating these geometric shapes, we're going to be tracing and using Sharpie to go over it. We're also going to be using crayons or colored pencils to color inside, and you can make very interesting kind of color patterns within your project. So we're going to get started, right? So the first thing we need is our circles, and so it's very difficult to draw a circle by hand just straight out the back. So what we're going to do is collect some items around the house that have a circle bottom where we could trace. So I'm not at home, but I am in your second grade classroom, and I found a bunch of circle goodies that I'm going to use for this project. So I can thank Miss Smith for that. So I'm going to use your Being Good little container that was on Miss Smith's desk because it has a nice big circle edge. So when I put it flat, I can trace that circle. I'm also going to be using your popsicle stick puller. So when she calls for jobs or when she asks questions in class, I grab that little container so it has a nice circle right on the edge, and it even has another one on the bottom that I could use as well. So this one's like a 2-circle. Then I also found on Miss Smith's desk this cool little hamburger guy. And so inside the hamburger eraser, there's actually a circle. The little patty is a circle. So I can push it down and then use a pencil to trace it around. So I'm going to use the patty. And because I have coffee and my coffee's in a cup container, the bottom of my coffee cup also works as a circle that I could use. So you can grab any kind of materials that you have, cups, bowls, if you have any containers that have circle lids, we can use that. So we want to pick about 3 circle lids or 4 for this project. So I'm going to start off with my bigger circle because it's huge. It's going to take up a lot of the space on my paper. So when we trace anything with that has a top on it or something we can push, we're going to use the hand that we don't write with to push it down so that it stays in place, because then when I trace, my object won't go all over the place. So I'm going to take my pencil with the hand that I write with, and I'm going to start to trace while pushing down with the other hand. But you're thinking, what happens when we hit our hand? Oh, I can't move. We're just going to jump over it and then connect that line and continue tracing until we have a nice big circle. So because there's a giant glare from the light, you can't really see my circle, but if I lift up my paper, you can see my nice big circle. So I'm going to do the same thing. Maybe I'll do it one more time just because it's a pretty big circle, so we can use another room. So now that I have 2 giant circles, I want you to keep in mind that your circles can touch, right? So as I lift it up, you can see they're kind of like interlacing. Kind of looks like a Venn diagram, right? So I'm going to take more of the objects that have the circle, and I'm going to continue to trace it. And so I can place them anywhere on my paper that I think's interesting. Again, I'm holding it down with one hand, using my pencil, jumping when I hit my wrist, and then tracing again. And then I'll do another one over here. And so I promise to lift it up to show you what it looks like in a second. I just want to get a couple circles down. So now I have this interesting, right? Different kinds of circles in different sizes to make an interesting pattern. Then I'm going to use it, believe it or not, this little hamburger patty, because I think it's funny and cute. So I'm going to hold it down with 2 fingers because my whole hand would cover the patty. Again, tracing, and where my pencil can't reach, I'm going to try to either lift up my hand or jump and then trace. And I'll do a couple of these around the page. So I want you to be creative with this project and think about the different kind of circle items that you can pick for the project, right? So cups work, bowls, pots, if it fits on the paper. You can also use bottle caps. That would be cool to use. So anything that has a circle edge. And I think that's about enough little patties. And so that's what it looks like with my little patties, right? So getting a little more interesting. And the last one I want to use is my coffee cup because, well, why not? It's another circle. And that makes 4 circles that I've traced, 4 circle items. And so you're probably thinking, how many circles do we have to trace, Ms. Reveles? Well, I probably want at least, if you have 4 items, you trace it at least 3 times, right? So that would be 12. So if you have 10 circles or 12 circles on your paper, that works. So 10 to 12. So I think I'm a little over. So I'm ready to start my next step. So now that I have all these different fabulous circles on my paper, see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I have 11. So that's a good number. I'm going to take my Sharpie and I'm going to start to trace. So if you don't have a Sharpie, you can use a black marker too. And so I'm going to start tracing each circle as best I can. And it's going to give me nice, clean borders. So that when I color, I know which sections should be one color and where to stop and start a new color. So you can always turn your paper, holding it down with one hand and tracing. I'm always looking at my paper when I trace. I don't move my eyes so that I can follow the lines really well. So you would continue tracing the whole thing, and instead of watching Ms. Reveles trace for a couple minutes, I actually made one that was already traced and ready to go. So this is what it should look like after you've traced all your circles. So you can see my big circles, my medium circles, and then I have like another medium, and then my tiny little patty circles. So when we start coloring, you can pick any colors that you want to use, either colored pencils or crayons. So I think I'm going to use crayons for this project. So this is where it can kind of get tricky for some people. So I'm going to start off with this nice scarlet colored crayon because it's one of my favorite colors. And I'm going to pick a section that I want to color. So we're not going to color the whole circle because I have all these other little sections that need a different color. So I'm going to choose one section of this circle. So I'm going to pick the bigger section. So when I start to color, I want to make sure that I'm coloring very nicely, right, and neatly, because that's what we call craftsmanship. That's taking care of our project, making sure we're not rushing to just get it done so it's not sloppy work, but it's like we took our time, we cared about our project. And so as I'm coloring, I'm getting closer to this small section, but I'm not going to go in it. I'm going to go around it. That black line is like a little border telling me no. It's saying don't come over here. And so then I'm ready to come to my other side. And again, there's another little section that's telling me, nope, stay away from me, Ms. Reveles. Okay, I'm going to stay away. So coloring, almost done with this section. And there we go. We have a nice, clean colored section. So I know the light makes it look not a beautiful scarlet, but it is a beautiful scarlet color. So now I can choose a new color. So I think I'd pick a blue for this one. And I'm going to do this tiny little section right here. So I'm going to start coloring right, and the same thing, I'm not going to go into my orange, into that scarlet color, because that's its own section. And then I have this little piece, almost like a little triangle. I don't want to color that too, because there's a black line, so it's telling me no. So there we go. If you want to make your project even more interesting than it already is, You can take your crayon, your purple crayon, and create a pattern in a section. So instead of coloring the whole thing purple, what I can do is maybe I want to add some polka dots in here. So I can put a polka dot section, or maybe I want to do hearts or stars or some X's, zigzags. All those are really good patterns to add to our project. I think I need one more polka dot right here. And so look, now it's kind of getting its own little personality, this little bubble. And so then I can just keep coloring. So as you're going through it, I want you to keep in mind the black lines is something we shouldn't cross, right? So each little piece is going to have its either own solid color or its own pattern. So I want you to really use your creativity to make these beautiful. You can use more than one color in a section, like if you wanted to blend. So like blending means that we're taking two colors that are similar. So like orange and yellow, and we're coloring with them together. You can start with your orange, and then overlap it with the yellow. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit better. And then you get an even more interesting color, like a light orange for this section. So you can blend that way. And then see, it's almost like the sun. Looks like the sun to me. But we wanted to color the whole thing so we get something interesting that looks similar to Ms. Rivales' project, like this. They're all going to look different because you're all different. And so I can't wait to see your projects. Tuesday, I'll also post another video to I'll give it to Miss Smith and she'll post it. And you can see what we're doing for next week. So you might want to take a peek, but I think you can guess what we're going to do. So, but wait for directions. Focus on this project for this week. It'll be due next Tuesday, okay? So have a great rest of your week, second grade. I'll miss you a ton, and I can't wait to see you back in art class soon.